Hey guys, welcome to the Commander-in-Chief podcast. I'm your host, Yuri Kruman. And on this podcast, as you've noticed by now, we talk to mostly tech founders, people that are not just, in a position of CEO. That's all great. That's not that uncommon. But we're trying to get to the root of people's stories, right? What is it that brought them to this moment to build what they're building out of, 1,000 things that they could do with their brilliance? And, I'm really excited today to speak to Nadav Keyson, who has built the very platform that we're actually recording on, Riverside.fm. Something that I found to be nothing against Zoom, but it kind of sucks. Like this is just much better done. So Nadav, thank you very much to you and your team for building this. And I would love to just have your introduction and let's dive right in.
Cool. So thanks a lot for having me, Yuri. So I'm Nadav, originally from the Netherlands, grew up in Amsterdam, and I've been living there all my life until 5 months ago. Moved to Israel, Tel Aviv, and I'm now building Riverside together with my two brothers. I founded Riverside a year and a half ago, and we'll get to it more, I suppose. But I originally was always building a lot of stuff, and our big previous project was an online debating platform for politicians. So politicians would come online and debate on our platform. We had some big names on our platform, at least Dutch big names, not worldwide big names, and but never really saw the traction we were hoping for. And then at some point we had this huge insight where people started asking if they could use our platform instead of us hosting these debates. So that's when we made a pivot. Had an amazing timing. When we made the pivot, it was just before COVID hit, and ever since have exploded, and are now really building a business for the future, basically.
Amazing. You guys are doing some great work. Just for a bit of background, I think you're a bit bashful about what you've built so far, but there's some pretty big people using your platform, right? You got Zuck, you got Gary V, Disney, etc. That's not exactly that's big. And you've got guys like Alexis Ohanian behind you. So clearly something very important is going on here. And that's something I'd like to dive into. So it's great to see politicians debating. I totally get that. I myself came up in college also doing a lot of debate, actually defending Israel from all sorts of, people that are not so sympathetic. So I completely understand where that's going. But, debate can be had in any number of forums. It can be had in any existing platforms. What moment, I don't know if it's a eureka moment or some other moment, but what kind of made you realize that, we've got to do something better than what exists?
Yeah, so it's very gradual. That's the truth. Or like, in hindsight, everything looks so obvious. But when you're in it, it wasn't that obvious. So, we built Riverside exactly. I think maybe we relate. I also had this whole a lot of debates about Israel, so that was definitely part of the reasons why I love debating, and also why I loved hearing other people debate. If not, it was just to sharpen my own thoughts and ideas and all that. And we were quite mission driven, thinking we can break through the echo chamber by having different people from different political parties come on our platform and debate with each other. Turned out that people prefer watching cat videos on YouTube than watching debates. So I think that's definitely why it didn't work out. And we launched Riverside initially a bit different than it's what's now. We thought we had one cool feature on the debate platform where people could call in with their questions and ask their questions live to politicians. So actually a bit similar to what Clubhouse is doing now. And we started off with the same idea, but then with video. And that was a very self itching our own need and our own, just thought it was cool. And this time it was going to be different because we would have a subscription. So if only one person would buy our software, we thought, okay, wow, that's amazing. Because before we could never really validate what we were building, because it was always like, long term, maybe we'll make somehow money with the debates, maybe sponsorships, but it was not just directly, okay, if people are paying, we know it works. We couldn't really measure it in that way. But now with this new platform, we really start with that intention. So we, without any investment whatsoever, we launched Riverside, and saw quite some traction about it, but people were not really using the call-in feature so much. They were using Riverside much more for quality recordings, and that's when we knew, okay, we need to double down on this. There's a huge opportunity here. Zoom is built for conferencing, not for video and podcast creation. So that's basically how we came to the idea of doubling down on quality with Riverside, and are now really revolutionizing the way video gets created, basically, and audio.
Cool. So I think one of the best things we can do at this point is go a little bit deeper into the actual technology, because I think a lot of people, they're just, okay, I record here, I record there. What difference does it make? I mean, I can tell you, because I do this all the time. The way that the video and the audio are recorded seems to me to be very different, because maybe it's separate channels. Again, I'm not a tech guy, but I'd love for our listeners to understand what it is that you're actually doing differently, because I think it's quite important.
Yeah, so actually it's in a way it's quite simple. The execution is very difficult, but the concept is quite simple. What we do is we record locally on both our computers where we're recording now. We're recording remotely, so Yuri is, I don't know where, but I am in the office. And so we're recording on my computer and uploading in real time. So it's a bit the same concept. Imagine you're recording yourself on your phone, just your camera roll, your camera application. You're not relying on the internet to record yourself on your phone. And basically, we're doing the same thing on your computer. We're recording locally on your computer audio and video and uploading that in real time to the cloud. So afterwards you can download those recordings, local recordings, within seconds. And because we're recording locally, internet connections don't matter. Like sometimes I'll see you now not as clear as you would expect, but that's because we're now just speaking over the internet. But afterwards the recordings are done locally. So the whole idea is that the recordings are immune to bad internet connections.
Well, I can right away think about, let's say, a project by Facebook Lite, right? It's meant for the developing world, where obviously internet speeds are usually not nearly that great. So something like this would be potentially a tremendous way to create a forum more or less out of nothing, right? Everyone has a cell phone, a smartphone in particular, and okay, they can maybe record something even with pretty crappy internet. So that alone, again, I don't know your roadmap. I have no idea about your vision. I'd love to obviously hear something about it, whatever you can share with us. But for me, that's really an amazing thing. Like Facebook is just one of, at least a handful of large tech companies that's working on, creating somewhat decent internet connections for the developing world, so that, they can access Amazon, Facebook, Meta, and all these other platforms, so they can buy more. Okay, that's obvious. But I think what you're doing is uniquely suited to also be leveraged in incredible ways, whether, by the way, for, democracy, because people can create their own forum now. They don't need to go through, TV channels. They don't need to go through other official channels. They can just do this on their own, and they can maybe build a following that way. Could you maybe give us a sense of your vision? Because I'm sure there's a lot here that, we're just scratching the surface.
Yeah. So actually, definitely touched upon it. Right now, I'm using my phone as a webcam, and your phone actually has a great camera. I'm using external mic, but even with your internal mic and when you use headphones, you can get quite decent audio. Mm-hmm. So our idea is really you don't need to have all this very expensive equipment to sound like a pro. That's like our main idea. But ultimately, long term, what we really envision is, without any editing or video skills, you can create amazing looking videos and amazing podcasts. So we want to take away that whole barrier of like everything that stands between putting out your message. We want to remove basically, so you can really only focus on your story and on your message, and then not all the tech stuff around it, basically.
Amazing. So again, forgive me, I'm thinking a little bit selfishly here. So here I am. I'm one of, literally millions of people creating podcasts, and, the timing is great. Thank God, right? It's great for business, and it's growing and growing, and nobody sees any end in sight for podcasts, which is awesome, right? Okay, let's say I record these things, and now I have to think, maybe I'm a guy who is one in his company and has to do everything. So let's say I want to create a bunch of other content from the podcast recording, right? is there something on your roadmap which kind of helps to attach to what you're doing and maybe parse it? It doesn't have to be AI, not AI, but something that maybe reads the text and parses it. I'm just curious. Like, that's something of interest for me.
Yeah. So actually, you have a premiere here. I don't know when this episode is coming out, but we're launching clips next week where people can automatically, or very easily, I should say, create clips out of their conversation. So during the conversation, you can say, hey, this is a good part, and then you can afterwards distribute those clips very easily. So it's really leveraging one-time content into a lot of different content pieces, without any editing or video skills. So that's one concrete thing. We also transcribe all audio and video to text if you are, we have that feature as well. So that allows for a case study. So that definitely we are helping, that's our mission, help our creator success, our success, basically.
Very cool. Yeah. So actually just upgraded to premium. So I'm seeing the transcription. I'm really excited about this clips feature. That's going to be really useful. Very cool. So one of the things that, before we pivot to kind of maybe your personal story, something that you could share with us, potentially that's useful for kind of the personal and the business. I mean, you have a lot to share, obviously, but where does this go? We talked, maybe there's something about light internet connection and spreading democracy. That all sounds really great. Is there any other goal that maybe is based on your background and your experience that you have in mind for this platform? What it can help facilitate for people around the world, other than just podcasting?
Yeah, I ultimately believe that with content can really change the world. So podcasting is one use case, but we also do video. Whether you're against it or in favor, but what are people doing nowadays? It's like they're creating content to change the world. For example, with Black Lives Matter, okay, like, that's what I meant to say. Like you can be against that whole movement or in favor. I'm not trying to make that opinion here, but how was it all started? So like with videos, audio, so really creating audio and video is like it can really help you spread your message and ultimately impact the world. So that's definitely like long-term our vision is really helping people bring their voice heard, help people create a personal brand as well. Like you are a brand, everyone is a brand nowadays. So that's what we are like really trying to high level, try to improve and tying that back to my personal life. I just have a very strong desire to always build stuff. That's like how I got started, and I really love the feeling of building something out of nothing. I've been trying a lot of different stuff. A majority of them failed. This time it worked, but I never really did like market research or anything like that. That's the truth. I just from my own desire built different projects, and this is the latest, and this will be probably my hopefully my best one, and also my last one. Yeah.
Best to date. I think there's a lot more beyond this.
Riverside will expand, but it will be on the Riverside. Yeah.
Very cool. Can you share with us any other? Everybody has a portfolio of things, right? We're all a media group, as you mentioned, right? So, let's say for me personally, okay, there's a book, a newsletter. We're writing for top publications, and there's my sort of bread and butter, HR consulting. It's like yawn, right? So PR, then HR, that's my shtick. For you personally, again, whether it's connected to this or not connected to this, is there any sort of like pet project or some other, big volunteering thing that you do? I think that's always nice to kind of give a sense. I
am going to do something cool, if at least help my brother doing something cool, who I built a Rashad with. He's gonna make it easier for people to make Aliyah. Like that's like high level what he's doing. So helping people come to Israel. So definitely that's like a side project that I hope to continue investing money and time in. Yeah.
Beautiful. Sign me up. Whatever I can do to help, I'm there, because I'm here myself 7 months, and actually one of my kind of critical pillars of what I'm doing is that exactly.
I'm only here 5 months.
Yeah. So we're,
Yeah.
I'm not Israeli. None of my
Same.
relatives are.
I'm also not, by the way. I might look and sound. My name is Israeli, but
Yeah.
my parents are from. My mother's from the Netherlands, and my dad's American. Yeah.
Okay. So you also have the American connection. Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, look, same idea, right? Whether you're sitting in the Netherlands and I don't know, maybe you have a comfortable lifestyle, maybe not. I don't know. Politics up and down, but in America, a lot of people are sitting and they're like, well, where is this going, right? And it's like, well, you always have the packed suitcase because that's
Yeah.
what people do.
And for me personally, it was not really running away from threats. I think Israel is a great place to live in.
Yeah.
Outside of, I also that's the light I want to the light I want to shed. Like nowadays, it can also be like to up your lifestyle moving to Israel and get a better. Yeah, I think that's like definitely. I moved here definitely for what's going on here. With startups and all that, of course, I have a very strong connection, but definitely, I think there's much more positivity, much more positive reasons to go to Israel.
I'm glad you brought that up. That's exactly how I see it, and that's exactly why I'm here. It's not because I'm running away from something. It's because life is a lot better here.
Yeah.
Pretty much any measure than, let's say, sitting in Brooklyn. Nothing against Brooklyn. It's got some great things about it, but if services are terrible, the high cost is there anyway. Yeah, we live in arguably around, we're all clustered around Tel Aviv, within an hour or less. But yeah, even if it's very expensive, at least the quality of life here is undeniably much better. There's better weather, there's better food, we have family, friends here. And it's like, it's not even a question. Everybody asks me like, but it must be difficult. I've never been happier to move to a different place than I did from Brooklyn, moving to Haifa, which is where we live now.
Yeah,
totally with you. Awesome. Okay, so one of the things I'd love to ask you, we touched on this a little bit before we pressed record. One of the reasons I did this podcast and one of the reasons why I'm kind of running this podcast, calling it Commander-in-Chief Podcast, is based on my book. So my book, again, just very briefly, it's about 4 pillars, 4 conversations I believe everyone should be having. And that's regardless of background or, age. It's really 4 elements, right? You have to understand your own health, right? So that's, let's say, your nutrition, fitness, sleep, biorhythms, etc. Don't need to be a biohacker. You don't need to be LeBron James and pour $1 million into your body every year. Just, you want to live a healthy lifestyle and you want to be able to enter a higher cognitive state as much as possible, as often as possible, in order to do your life's best work so that you can fulfill your mission and, give away your billions at 120. I don't know, whatever your mission is. Number 2 is mental models and life skills. It's really things nobody is taught, but has to figure out for themselves. Number 3 is looking at classical kind of relationship dynamics. Okay, so, how do you create relationships? How do you manage them? And, okay, your advisors, investors, employees, vendors, whatever. But, yeah, also, I don't know, wife, kids, parents, right? These are things that nobody teaches us. And it's like, oh, I need to hire a coach for that. Yeah, maybe you do, maybe you don't. But you should have some idea of what your core values are so that you can express them in every conversation with someone else. And the last one is about conversation with God and the universe and all of that. Each person has their own flavor, but essentially we have Maslow's hierarchy that's well developed beyond sort of the most basic and obvious things. So given that kind of framework and way of looking at your journey and what you're building, whether that's your business or your side projects, what would you like to hopefully share with us, listeners, about what you've learned and something from your own life philosophy?
Well, you touch upon 4 very different topics. But I'm currently fasting, so I'm doing like intermittent fasting. I'm doing that. That's like more like nutrition wise.
Yep.
Let me think about what have I learned. I've learned a lot. I've learned. I think one thing I've learned is that no one knows. You look up to a lot of people. I've spoken to incredible people by their resume, but ultimately everyone is trying to just just hack it and figure it out as they're going. So I think that's like you can always try to find a coach and all that stuff. And I think reading is a shortcut to success. But at the same time, the future, no one knows. Not our investors know. I don't know. Everyone's just trying to figure things out as they're going. And so am I. And I'm doing my best.
Humility is an important part of this journey. Absolutely. Appreciate you sharing that. Let me ask you this. Let me turn the tables. Is there anything that I haven't asked? I mean, we could be here for hours, I'm sure, but we probably don't have that for this purpose. Is there anything that you feel I should have asked you, and what would that be?
I think what's cool is that I built it together with my brothers. So I built Riverside together with my two brothers. So I think that's definitely an exciting part of our journey. It's like I started not with any connections in the Netherlands, in Amsterdam, just building stuff. And I think it shows just the opportunity the internet brings to people. And it doesn't always need to be tech, what I built, but like you're doing with your podcast. I think that's also a great way to get your message out there and get to meet interesting people. So I think that's definitely. I guess what I think you should have asked is maybe who I built Riverside with, but now I told you that I built it together with my brothers. Yeah. Yeah.
So maybe a little bit about that, because that's okay. It's a thorny subject. I've written about this actually in Entrepreneur, I think maybe earlier this year, about family business. For whatever reason, I didn't pick this. I didn't go go out looking for it, but for whatever reason, I've had the opportunity to work with quite a few family businesses. And, you see the good, the bad, and the ugly. There's no question. I've worked in businesses where it's a husband and wife who, CEO, president / CEO. There's a best friend working there, VP of operations. There's a cousin who's a project manager. You have other businesses where, it's other combinations. And it's, you see the best of people because it's a family company and that's great. It works for the family. How do you manage to make that work for everybody else? Right. And it's not an easy question. I understand
for
that.
People within the company, for other people
within the company. I guess thinking about it.
I have a lot of thoughts about that, definitely. Yeah. Like I think it becomes problematic if your brothers are there for merits. Like then it becomes very awkward and you need to like validate why they are there. I think that becomes problematic, and I definitely don't recommend hiring your friend because he's your friend. If your friend is the best at what he does, then bring him on. I think that's why it works for us. We complement in skills, and I consider them great at what they do. So definitely, I think that's the most important thing to make it work.
Cool. And one of the things, again, for me personally, because I have to scratch my own itch, right? I do this partly because I'm trying to learn from people what it is that they do when they do it really well. So for me, one of the most important things is how do you sort of think about managing people? What is your philosophy? Have you sort of had any? Again, usually philosophy grows out of, okay, practice was terrible. Like, maybe some people go through corporate and they see, oh my God, I would never treat people that way. And they create something where, this system at McKinsey is the best thing in the world. And they drank the Kool-Aid, right? So I'd love to kind of learn from your perspective. Again, you've built things before. You've worked with all kinds of different people. Is this different from other experiences? What can you share with us about your kind of people management philosophy?
Well, it's the first time actually that I'm doing it. So I haven't really done it before, other than working together with other people. Mm-hmm. So we're now 50 people. So definitely for me, it's also been, like I said before, I'm learning a lot as I'm going. I think I've tried to read a lot about it, what to do best. So I try to at least lead by example. I think that's probably super important. Give a lot of ownership to people, trust people, be very direct. It comes naturally to me. So being Dutch and Israeli, it makes you super direct. And yeah, I think trust is definitely important. Giving people trust, I think that's like the most important thing. Yeah.
Very cool. So, okay, look, God willing, everything works out exactly as you want, and I don't know, somewhere between 5 and 10 years out, you have whatever result it is. I don't know what that looks like. IPO exit, I'd love to hear. So, what is your next step after that? What do you want to do that's, you know, on a platform that's 1,000 or 10,000 times bigger than what you have currently, which is not small?
Yeah, I want to really. So you mean after we IPO or before we IPO?
Yes, whatever, right? There's no strict deadline.
Okay, yeah. So I'm really here with a big ambition, making Riverside huge, and people should think about, if they think about the content, they should think about Riverside. That's my ambition. That's why we took a lot of money, and yeah, I definitely want to bring impact to this world with what we're building. Definitely.
Amazing. One last question. Again, this is just kind of my own curiosity. So let's say, I mean, okay, it's a democratic platform. Anybody can use it. You know, anybody can pay their SaaS fee, and God bless, create what you want. You know, you want to connect people in the, developing nations, help them engage in debate. You want to record a podcast. You want to do whatever, right? Let's say, we're 5 years out, and we know how usually content platforms work. You have, let's say, the model of YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, etc. Right? Usually, what happens is you have a certain kind of super class of influencers, celebrities, etc., getting preferential treatment, or they get some kind of extra premium just because of their network effect. So I'm curious, just sort of how you think about that. I mean, given that you're coming from a background where you're trying to facilitate, I guess, democracy in all senses. Right. So how does that question of, okay, I don't know, following, or, that comes into play when you get bigger and, you're looking for kind of scaling up and eventually IPO, right? Because you want to be a platform where people come to consume content, not just create it. Right. So,
Sure.
Thoughts?
I mean, right now, I think the majority of the influencers using Riverside, I have no idea about. So, for example, Mark Zuckerberg and Gary Vee, I didn't know until afterwards when they shared a picture. So they are getting the same treatment as everyone else, is getting. So ultimately, there are also people. I've met a lot of these influencers personally, and they don't need to be really treated differently. There hasn't been any need. It might become different, but yeah, they're using the same account you're using, the influencers.
Now I feel really special. Okay, Nadav, thank you so much. Really appreciate your insights. And yeah, I don't need to tell you that it's a bit meta that we're recording this podcast on your platform. So I wish you a tremendous hatzlacha. You should be successful in everything that you want in your work, in your side projects. Thank you for building this, and keep going. This is awesome.
I really appreciate you having me, Yuri.
Thank you very much, Nadav. Take good care.